Welcome to our series of webinars about assessment tools for students. Today, we will delve on some tips in designing multiple choice questions. Before we go on, I think we need to be reminded about our vision as a university. We are a leading Christian institution committed to total human development for the well-being of the society and environment. As teachers of Silliman University, part of our mission is to provide opportunities for growth and excellence in every dimension of the university life in order to strengthen character, competence, and faith. And I would like to emphasize faith in God through Jesus Christ. Jesus, aside from being Redeemer, Savior, Master or Lord, was also a teacher. Of course, he still is. His disciples, though, did not address Jesus as Sir, Professor, or Doctor, the way our students call us. The Bible scholar said that Jesus was addressed teacher 60 times in the Bible. Jesus did not negate this idea when he himself said in John 13:13, "You call me teacher and Lord, and rightly so, for that is what I am." Nicodemus believed this claim when by night he came to Jesus and said, "We know that you are a teacher who has come from God." John 3:2. At the time, Jesus was doing face-to-face teaching at Galilee, Judea, and Samaria. The world was also experiencing some kind of a pandemic. I believe there was some sort of a spiritual pandemic. No, they did not distance themselves away from each other. But the Sadducees, Pharisees, and scribes did distance themselves away from Jesus. Inflicted with a virus called sin, or SIN, they hated the Son of Man. Jesus responded by employing unique teaching strategies to put across his life-transforming message of love, accentuating the fact that he is the way, the truth, and the life. My dear friends, amid the COVID-19 pandemic, we also need to respond according to the call of these new and unprecedented times. We are responsible for adjusting and reimagining the traditional classroom that we have been used to. We have partly done that by undergoing Mind Soul training. Among others, we were taught how to upload our assignments or assessment tools, such as the multiple choice questions or the true or false questions and other types of tools. Well, that was fun. There seemed to be no problem, especially among the millennials and the faculty who belong to the Generation Z. The concern of the Office of Instruction is the way we design our multiple choice questions. That is, for this webinar today, we need to ensure that we can measure student learning through MCQs along with other tools for assessment. Our general objective for this webinar is to improve the quality of our MCQs with the ultimate aim of properly assessing student learning through MCQs, that is, along with your existing measures that we will cover in the succeeding webinars. So today, I will present some general strategies or tips. In particular, I will show you how to design STEMs and alternative options. So before going further, it is important to understand The anatomy of a multiple choice question. In this slide, we see the question, what is the boiling point of water under standard condition at sea level? Then the choices are there, A, B, C, and D. So the question is called the stem, the text which asks the question. There are options here. These are the possible answers, A, B, C, and D. And we call the correct answer the key. However, the incorrect answers will be referred to as the distractors. According to Shanks, students find a multiple choice question confusing because sometimes there is no correct answer. Sometimes the question contains unnecessary information, and the wordings are ambiguous as well. And some answer choices are poorly written. However, students could be happy about it because our MCQ contains a cue to the correct answer. We will elaborate on this later. So what if MCQs are flawed? A flawed MCQ reduces the quality of the assessment and places test writers, test takers, and institutions at risk. So let me give you an example of a multiple choice question with some errors. I want you to spot the flaws in this question and let me read it. Maria, a member of the response team, receives a call about a person unresponsive on the floor outside the elevator on floor 3. Maria gets to the person first and begins cardiopulmonary resuscitation or CPR. The question, which of the following PPE is not needed when doing CPR? Select the correct answer. I will give you 1 to 2 minutes to analyze this question. You may use the chat box below the screen for your answers. Ready? Okay, just for fun, begin. What is wrong with this question? You have here 4 options. A, disposable gloves. B, barrier device. C, eye protection. And D, none of the above. Maybe I can give you 30 more seconds. Okay, almost there. Okay, maybe 3 more seconds. And that's it. Let's see what's wrong. Let's see if you got the correct answer. In this question, the term barrier device may be confusing. Don't you think so? Because many people know it as a CPR breathing mask. the nursing students should know this. The term PPE in the question should be spelled out personal protective equipment because readers may not know what PPE means. Okay, let's see if you have spotted other flaws. In this question, the situational information makes the question even more confusing. What exactly are we asking here? Should Maria start CPR without personal protective equipment? Does Maria have all the equipment she needs? Or are we asking which personal protective equipment she should use when performing CPR? This last question is what we are asking. So this situational information really adds confusion. Let's take a look at other flaws. Also, research has shown that the answer none of the above is a problematic answer choice that should not be used. Additionally, the question is worded negatively. It says, which of the following PPE is not needed when doing CPR? And research finds negatively worded questions perform poorly. Evidently, there is an awful lot of flaws in one short MCQ, and they all damage the question. So, how are we going to fix the question? It's here, and I'd like to read. When performing CPR, which of the following personal protective equipment should you optimally use? Select the best answer. So I want you to compare that question to the right side of the slide. So the choices here in the left side are A, B, and C. A barrier mask for giving rescue breaths. B, an automated external defibrillator. And C, hand washing after contact with a victim. So if you compare the two, obviously this is a much clearer way of stating your MCQ. So what does research say about training to write good MCQs? According to Dellingis and Curtis in 2017, a study provides evidence that the training session of short duration was effective in improving the quality of in-house MCQs. So let's try to do that today. It's gonna be a very short training. The training answers the following questions. 1. What do you want to measure? And we are going to refer to Bloom's taxonomy to be able to answer that. What are MCQs used for? How do we design the stem or the question's text? And finally, how do we design the distractors? So first, you need to answer the question, what do I want to test or measure? You need to ask yourself, what do I want to test with this multiple choice question? The Bloom's taxonomy provides guidelines on how to answer the question, what do I want to test with my MCQ? May I direct your attention to the pyramids on the screen? Studies show that most of the time, MCQs are used to assess the remembering or understanding ability of our students. That's when you look at the new version of the Bloom's taxonomy, or the knowledge and comprehension abilities of our students. If you look at the old version of taxonomy, they're actually the same. The two lowest levels reflect what I'm talking about. Now, even if the MCQ is a very popular assessment tool, to measure the knowledge and comprehension of our students, we tend to commit lots of errors in formulating our test questions at the expense of our students. Therefore, permit me to share to you some tips to avoid these mistakes. So now let me give you some tips in writing the STEM. First, we need to eliminate excessive wording and irrelevant information from STEM. Why? Because irrelevant information in the STEM confuses students and leads them to waste time. Take a look at this MCQ on your right. It says, and I'm going to read, a number of books have been published about the University of Waterloo. These books fall into various genres such as photographic histories, biographies of prominent people involved with the university, and accounts of history of individual departments. Among them was a book whose author is known as Simon the Troll. What is the title of this book? And you have there 4 options. A. Dreaming in Technicolor. B. Water under the Bridge. C. Of Mud and Dreams. And D. Images of Waterloo. What's with that question? Some parts are not necessary to answer the question. So a better question would be, and I want you to compare that with the right side of the slide. The better question would be, what is the title of the book about Waterloo, written by Simon the Troll? You have the options there. Okay, another tip. You need to present a single, definite statement to be completed or answered by one of the several given choices. So on the right side, you see here an example. It says polysaccharides, A, are made up of 1,000 smaller units called monosaccharides. B, are not found in the aloe vera leaf. C, are created during photosynthesis. D, can be described with the chemical formula CHHOH. In this example, there is no sense from the STEM of what the question is actually asking, right? So this can be reworded, and the example is found below. And this time you have 5 options. It says, polysaccharides of the plant cell wall are synthesized mainly in A, the endoplasmic reticulum, B, the cytosol, C, the plasma membrane, D, the Golgi complex, and E, amyloplasts. So I think that this is a better question. Another tip in writing the STEM, it says here, use simple, clear language using as few words as possible. Questions that are constructed using complex wording may become a test of reading comprehension rather than an assessment of whether the student knows the subject matter. So take note of this STEM. It's kind of complex. As the level of fertility approaches its nadir, what is the most likely ramification for the citizenry of a developing nation? Sounds complex, isn't it? So you have 5 choices there. Now, in order to fix that, it has to be simplified. So the STEM would be a major decline in fertility in a developing nation is likely to produce, then you have those 5 options there. So another one, avoid giving clues in the questions. So in this case, the clue is the article "an," right? It says, another name for a test is an, A, assessment, B, condition, C, interview, and D, check. So the possible options here would be assessment and interview, right? Because of the word "an" in the stem. So here is a better example. Another name for a test is A/am. Okay, so that should not confuse the student. And then you have the same option. Another tip, avoid repeating the same text in all the options. Move the text to the stem instead, right? So here in the question above, the teacher repeated the phrase "the maintenance." So the question is, theorists in pluralism have asserted which of the following: A, the maintenance of democracy requires a large middle class. B, the maintenance of democracy requires autonomous centers of countervailing power. And you also see the term maintenance in C, D, and E, right? So maybe we can move the text to the stem instead so that the question would be stated like this. Theorists of pluralism have asserted that the maintenance of democracy requires A, B, C, D, and E. You will notice that the term "the maintenance" is already gone in each of the options. I have here more tips in writing a stem. 1. Avoid asking negative questions, such as which of the following animals is not a mammal? Then avoid double negatives. Avoid subjective language, such as which of the following do you think is? Avoid the use of personal pronouns, such as you, they, or I. And avoid words like could, would, or might. So now let's go to the other parts of an MCQ, the options and the distractors. The options are the list of possible answers, we said that earlier, consisting of one correct answer, that's the key, and a number of incorrect answers, which are the distractors. Make sure that there is only one correct answer and that this answer is unambiguously correct. Creating good distractors is the hardest, I know, but also the most important part of creating a good MCQ. Now, for the options, is there an ideal number of options? Now, let's see what research says. According to Vyas and Supe, MCQs with 3 options provide a similar quality of test as that with 4 or 5 option MCQs. And they suggested that MCQs with 3 options should be preferred. Another research by Vegada et al. They said assessment based on 3 option MCQs is preferred over 4 option and 5 option MCQs. And here in the last research here, they compared a set of 4 options and a set of 3 options. And they suggested that 3 option questions are better because it's more discriminating and associated with low difficulty. However, they said that the reliability was low. Now let's go to the distractors. Wrong answers. So the wrong answers accordingly must be plausible and sensible. Look at this example to your right. Dichotic presentation of stimuli and shadowing are often used in the study of A. Brightness constancy, B. Sensory scaling, C. Shadow dancing, D. Cartoons, E. Selection attention. Now, as you can see, in this example, C and D are not really serious distractors or distractors. So a better one would be dichotic presentation of stimuli and shadowing are often used in the study of A. Brightness constancy, B. Sensory scaling, C. Illusions, D. Depth perception, and E. Selection attention. So here, the options for C and D are replaced so that the distractors are plausible and sensible. Another tip, good distractors must be comparable in length and use of grammar to the correct answer. So here in the right side of the screen, you see the boiling point of water is, and you have the options A, B, C, and D. And you notice that for option B, it's longer. So we can improve that. Here's a better example. Below it says the boiling point of water at sea level under standard conditions is, and again you have the four options there. And you notice that for option B, that's no longer, some of the words are no longer there. So that the length of options A, B, C, and D is comparable. For my final piece of advice for writing good questions, I want you to please ask a colleague to review and actually try out your questions. Experience suggests that we often cannot see the problems with our own questions. Right, and I think you agree with me. So there you have it, a crash training course in writing good multiple choice questions. In this webinar, we answered the following major questions. What do you want to measure in MCQs? According to the Bloom's taxonomy, we're basically measuring the lower order thinking of students. Although MCQs can also measure the higher order thinking of our students, and that would be the subject matter for my succeeding webinar. We also learned about the tips on how to write the STEM, tips about the preferred number of options, and finally, some tips on how to write the distractors. So to tie up our introduction, I would like to ask you a question. As teacher, did Jesus design multiple choice questions? There seems to be no indication that he did. Dominant among his teaching methods, however, is storytelling that generates a question. In Matthew 13, Jesus tells about the parable of the soils to teach how important the state of our heart is to receive the gospel. He related 4 types of soils to his students and other hearers. This story generated an important question, which says, what type of a soil am I tending? From the 4 options, only one option is desirable to Jesus. My dear colleagues, in our own online classes, let's ensure that we design MCQs properly so that our students can give us the most desirable option. That ends our webinar today. Thank you, and I would love to entertain some comments and questions.